Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, chunashumme, washmale. Ohio Gonzalez, Guten Morgen, hola, bonjour, privet, kaifa hal, hale shuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba. Buna, mucho gracias, Fabi, balli ke rahe, hosh geldin, nayo sahe, khuya mora, chi vato, chi hal, yud, kalimera, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajra Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and it happens to be Friday, so Jummah Mubarak to each and every one of you. Please make sure that if you're going out for prayers or even if you're praying at home, remember our entire team and the all of Pakistan in your prayers. But first things first, hello Hajra, assalamu alaikum. How are you doing on a fine sunny Friday morning over here in Islamabad?
Walaikum assalam, jazakallah khair. I think I'm doing perfectly fine. Its weather is a little bit sweaty, but it's very confusing at one moment, especially when the sun sets down, you feel that the cold wind is blowing, breezing. But the moment the sun rises up, you feel literally the sweat and the humidity, and I think it's pre-monsoon, or I don't know if it's monsoon. It's very confusing in the first place. But this weather, we talked about it, demands cold beverages and the sort of food that would make us more colder from inside, right? Yeah. And when we start our day, so obviously we are talking about the breakfast, and breakfast is something that should have a lot of calories and I mean a good nutritional value, because you have to spend the entire day on it. Or
probably a lot of carbs as well. But there's a reason why we're talking about it, because today what happened, you know, I think I wasn't really very happy when I was leaving my home, and it was because of the fact that one, my breakfast wasn't ready, and it has never happened in 3 decades of my life, alhamdulillah, that I have stepped outside my house and that too without breakfast.
Yes.
And then number two, so I had to get breakfast from fast food chain, and they did had a hash browns, and I was like, okay, whatever, it's all right, you're going to have a great day. So I kept on counseling myself, and then I thought about that, okay, when we used to go to our friends' villages, the breakfast over there is so healthy, Haja, that you cannot even imagine. Or probably, we feel like it. So imagine there's going to be, paratha with a lot of buzz in it, So ballo wale parathe, ladies and gentlemen, are very famous with, desi ghee and whatnot. And then there's going to be makhan, then there's going to be desi chicken, and then there's going to be some dal, and then lassi, eggs and whatnot, and lassi, obviously. And lassi, obviously, will then make you feel a little more sleepy right after your breakfast.
I think the parathas are also going to make you feel very sleepy, because there's so much calories into it, and when you eat 2 parathas, because they have a lot of nutritional value and they have a lot of desi ghee on the top of it, so the moment you gulp it down, you definitely feel that you're getting very sleepy about it. But since I belong to mountainous area, and
how's the breakfast over there?
Okay, so it's usually like a typical Punjabi village, or I think in general Pakistani village is. So it's a lot of parathas, yes, and desi ghee. So people have this practice of having their own animals there. So they take their dairy products from those animals, like you can see the desi ghee in this matka and in the earthen pot, in the other words.
And the chaba even, look at the chaba and those steel glasses for lassi. And every time I see it, and look at that, saag and then makai ki roti, and all of these things, and wow, and then I don't know whether it's pie. It's pie.
It's pie. and Shahzad, the food which is made in these earthen pots, so usually the gas is not readily available in Murray because of the pressure and etc. So people make it on a more conventional method, so by burning woods and stuff like that. And it is usually made on the earthen pots, and the food, I think, that is made on the earthen pot, it tastes really, really different. There's something in it, because there's a lot of medicinal value of these earthen pots. It has a lot of pores, and the oxygen is going out. So, and once it goes into the microwave, and then when it comes into the fridge, you can feel that there's a change of the taste in it. So the village food, it's very extremely tasty in that sense, and it has a lot of nutritional value. And then you have to, I think, climb the entire mountain up and do your entire work. So, and that is why people live very long life in those particular areas. So generally, average living age is around 80-90 years.
And I believe that, I still feel like having a glass of thandi lassi out there, halwa puri and halwa and chane and whatnot, and it happens to be my favorite. So I still remember that what I used to do was that whenever I was going to have a cheat day, which is obviously on Sundays, because we do a brunch where all my siblings come together, all my nephews and everybody, my brother-in-laws, everybody's at home. So we bring in a lot of nihari and halwa puri and chane. So my favorite bite, and you can even think about yours, is that I would put some halwa on my plate, and then what I'll do is that I'll crack the yolk of that half-fried egg, and then dip the
the bite of roti,
the bite of puri, the bite of puri first of all in the halwa, and then dip it a little bit in the yolk, and then have it. And ladies and gentlemen, the palate, it's just overwhelmed by the kind of bite you're going to have. So that's my favorite bite ever. You know, say if I'm going to have something that's going to be puri with halwa and then dipped in a little bit of yolk is something which I just love. And there's a little bit of tinge of salt on your yolk as well. What's your favorite bite?
I do infer from the way you're describing is that you're really fond of the eggs and halwa in the first
Yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah.
So eggs is my favorite, and I don't think so I can start my day, and I can even think of starting my day by not having the eggs. But I do not have that much proclivity towards halwa. I mean, yes, I can have halwa, but
Just a little bit of it, one bite only.
yes, but I think the eggs in any form, be it the omelette, be it the boiled one, be it the half fry or full fry, egg in any form is always a welcome for me. Or maybe, I don't know what you call that in English, but we call in Urdu as khakina, right? And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. So
made
you,
of the
you
egg,
mix
yes.
the eggs and then
Yes,
the onion
yes,
and then tomatoes
yes.
and everything goes in it,
Yes.
and it's on a frying pan, and then, you know, it's,
Yes.
it's just like a mixed vegetable curry.
And,
You know, that's how it is.
And meetha anda, I don't know what do you call it in English.
Sweet egg.
Maybe, but I think there's a particular name in English. I can't recall it. But anda and egg in any form is always a welcome for me. And also, any beverage that contains milk is also favorite for me, because I consume a milkshake of
That's good.
bananas,
Wow.
especially coming to office. So it's a win-win for me. And then when I go back, so I have this lassi, because it is so extremely hot that I need to cool my sides inside.
And our generation is so inclined towards eggs. Only our generation. So I'm not going to speak the
Really?
generations after us towards the eggs, because of the fact that, you know, while we were growing up, we were a little deprived of these eggs. You know, so
Oh,
beta
really?
zyada nahi khane, ye garam hote hain, and all of that. So we grew up listening to that.
Right.
And eventually now, when you can afford it, you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to have lots of eggs.
Yes.
And you know, when you start to go to you know, the gym and you bodybuilding, so eggs are really important for protein intake as well. But ladies and gentlemen, having said that, we hope and pray that everybody out there is going to enjoy their breakfast today. And yeah, you know, make sure that for all of those people who you know, eat these desi ghee parathas and
Yes.
palak and saag and makhan and whatnot, they work a lot all through the day.
So
You know, either they're in the fields, either
Yes.
they're with their cows, either
Yes.
they're doing something,
Yes.
which is why they never get fat. There's no cholesterol issue.
Yes.
There's no nothing of that sort.
Because they are exerting. And one interesting fact before we wrap up this breakfast segment is that in Japan they have rice as a breakfast menu. So that's very interesting about it. So now moving to our top stories, Pakistan and Azerbaijan signed statement of understanding to promote trade between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. Prime Minister Mia Mohammad Shahbaz witnessed the signing ceremony, and the Minister of Commerce Syed Naveed Qamar and Minister of Economy of Azerbaijan Mikhail signed the statement of understanding rather. The signing of the statement of understanding will increase the trade volume between the two countries, especially in the energy sector, and it's an immense moment of pride considering the fact that if a lot of people who have went to Azerbaijan, especially in the Baku or in the area surrounding the Baku, they feel that the Azerbaijanis are very warm towards the Pakistani community or Pakistani brethren, because Pakistan supported Azerbaijan back then when there was a war between the Armenia and Azerbaijan, and they very openly and warmly welcome. So there are three flags, which is a very common sight in Azerbaijan. One is their own flag, of course, another is Turkish flag, and third is the Pakistani flag. So you will find this, and it's a really immense moment of pride that we are signing an agreement with a brotherly country, which also will help us in increasing our trade volume, inshallah. So moving on, it is related to the sports, and the Asian Cricket Council announced the dates and the venues for the Asia Cup with the tournament in Pakistan. This means the PCB will remain as the event host and stage matches in Pakistan with Sri Lanka as the neutral venue. Matches will be played in over 50 over format, as the preparations for the ODI World Cup in India is in October and November, and definitely as a country which is immensely invested into the sporting event of the cricket, who loves cricket entirely. There's so many emotions invested in the cricket. A lot of memes which, especially in the social media, floating around about how their capacity is. But generally, I think there are a lot of emotions which are invested in the cricketing event.
Obviously, you know, so it's congratulations to Pakistan Cricket Board and the Pakistani government, because imagine that, you know, Pakistan had the rights to host the Asian Cricket Council or the ACC Cup over here in Pakistan, but unfortunately it was because of this controversy which was created by BCCI, you know, which happens to be the Indian Cricket Board, and unfortunately that didn't happen. But I think what's nice is, and what I certainly want to congratulate our Pakistan Cricket Board and the audiences out there and the people who love cricket is that Pakistan will certainly be hosting, and as per the hybrid model, so 4 matches will take place over here out of 13, and then the 9 matches are going to take place in Sri Lanka. So it's a win-win because Sri Lanka actually wanted to kind of have a part of hosting the Asia Cup, number one, and the sole reason of for us and all the Asian Cricket Council member teams was to kind of contribute towards this very amazing reason that Pakistan, it's a win-win because imagine that BCCI and PCB will certainly, PCB has the hosting rights, so will obviously, you know, there's a lot of bigger chunk of turnover which is going to come in, and then BCCI never wanted to come to Pakistan, you know, but they still didn't wanted to lose on that money which will be generated when India and Pakistan are going to come together in a ground, and there's a fair chance that, you know, it can be thrice, you know, so if Pakistan and India reaches the final of the Asia Cup, ladies and gentlemen, it will be the 3rd time that they'll be coming against each other, and so bigger revenue for BCCI and Pakistan Cricket Board in Sri Lanka just wanted to host the remaining matches, and it's going to happen. So it's a good news for everybody, and it's a win-win for everybody. Alhamdulillah, Pakistan Cricket Board, you've done a great job.
Alhamdulillah. So now talking about the current events and especially the weather and the climatic changes that are occurring in Pakistan, and of course I'm alluding to the cyclonic storm Biparjoy which is coming to Pakistan. What are the updates surrounding it? Certainly we are going to talk about it, but before delving into this entire topic, our team has made a very wonderful package, so why not delve into that?
Let's go, let's take a look.
The very severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy is expected to hit coastal communities of Pakistan. The cyclone Biparjoy is likely keep tracking northeastward and will landfall between KT Bandar and Indian Gujarat coast this evening as a very severe cyclonic storm with packing winds of 111 kilometers per hour. The intensity of the cyclone will increase amid nearing the shore. Biparjoy developed into a cyclone in the early morning hours of 6th June, and the radius of the present cyclone appears to be greater than the previous one of 1999. Evacuations continue in Sindh and vulnerable areas as Cyclone Biparjoy barrels towards Pakistan's coastal belt. Federal Minister for Climate Change Shahzad Khan apprised that the storm would not make direct landfall in Karachi, but tidal waves, rainfall, and dust storms are expected in the city. The areas declared vulnerable are the same that were impacted during the 2022 floods, and the cyclone may halt relief and rebuilding of work underway. People need to take PDMA Sindh and PDMA Balochistan advisories seriously for the coastal areas. The government is trying to evacuate masses to safer places, and it is the only remedy to cope with the cyclones in the world. Unusually warm waters helped fuel Biparjoy's rapid intensification twice in its lifetime, which indicate dangerous dynamics of climate change and its impact on Pakistan.
And I would certainly request each and every individual, you know, people over here to, you know, kind of pray for all of those people who, God forbid, live in those vulnerable areas. And not just that, to kind of pray to Allah Almighty to avert such a natural calamity, because I think that's the only solution, ladies and gentlemen. Pakistan has been very proactive in its approach in making sure that they kind of evacuate all of those areas which are the most vulnerable. 6,000 people, Hajra, have actually been moved or located to 60,000 people have been moved to, you know, safer places, which I believe is wonderful. But unfortunately, with you know, landfalls expected today, it can go either way. So we certainly need to pray, and the government's doing whatever is best in the interest of people. And I think that's exactly something which needs to be done. But for all of those people who live in Karachi and alongside the coastal areas, it's just a humble request. And I certainly, Hajra, never get this, that, okay, you know, so there's been news about it. People have been telling people that, okay, nobody's supposed to go near the sea places. And imagine that that's where people need to go. You know, so every time you warn them, hey, you know, but don't go over there, don't touch that. It's just like you're kind of trying to guide a 3-year-old baby that, hey, you do not want to do this. But ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we have been joined by the Minister of Climate Change, Ms. Shahzad Khan, who's online with us. So we would like to kind of talk about this very issue. Assalamu alaikum, Honorable Minister, how are you?
I think that the line has dropped and we are trying to reconnect with her, but certainly Ms. Shahzad Khan, our Minister for the Climate Change, has also warned about, since the intensity has broken a little bit because the storm has hit the Kutch area of Indian Gujarat, and now it's moving to it, and she has tweeted that we should not read too much into the weakening of the storm because the unpredictability element of the storm still stands out, and we should not take it casually. And like Shahzad mentioned, people need to be very careful because because NDMA and PDMAs have taken very proactive approach, targeting people, especially through the messages, and through the local authorities have also went door to door, making sure and ensuring that people are evacuated from that particular area, which is very vulnerable in the first place. And these cyclonic storms, they are not a commonality or normality in Pakistan. I think this is the first time we have heard that a cyclone is coming to hit our coastal areas.
It's not really the
right?
first time, so I've heard about it, I think at least twice or thrice, but it never did take place.
Yes,
Which is why, a lot of people are actually not
yes.
taking it that seriously,
Yes.
that, since it has never happened, so it's not going to happen this time around. And, even if we are to kind of, but ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by the Honorable Minister of Climate Change, Ms. Siri Rahman. She's online with us. So where are we if we are to kind of talk about Biparjoy? Because just recently we played a report where it mentions that it's certainly likely to hit all of those vulnerable places where the 2022 floods came in as well. And how is the preparation of the government?
Well, the preparation was actually quite stellar compared to any other time. All vulnerable areas were evacuated, number one. But as you know, the cyclone has dissipated its landfall, or will be dissipating its landfall through the course of the day in Indian Gujarat, where it landfell last night, and it's completing its landfall. It's completed it in a very, very high impact, break into it barrels to Indian Gujarat and veered east from literally right of our border. So Alhamdulillah, it's been a great relief, but obviously those coastal areas that I mentioned earlier, particularly Sajawat, Hatta, they are all fairly inundated from the sea level rise and the rain pattern, which most of the earlier areas mentioned are also coastal areas. Of course, are still to expect rainfall and some level of rain, but the worst of the monsoon, the cyclone rather, the severity has passed, and so we are past it. Our next challenge is to look after the people who are in the evacuated camps. Many of their homes are inundated and not ready for return right now. So we will be circling back today in meetings with the Sindh authorities, the CDMA, and our federal SUPARCO agencies to give us some mapping of who can return and who cannot.
Right. So, Ms. Sherry Rahman, we have heard this. Do you think that these cyclonic storms, and there was a flood last year, are the pattern that fits into the broader climate change? Because there was a report by the World Weather Attribution which has found that the climate crisis has played in increasing the intensity of the rainfall by about up to 50% in the first place, because these cyclonic storms hitting Pakistan, that was not a very novelty in the past years. But in the few years, we have seen that these climatic crises has exacerbated a lot of conditions.
I'm so glad there is some literacy on climate change in the media. Good for you, but the rest of the year, the media really doesn't want to know. When policy changes are made, or where recommendations are pushed through even cabinet and policies accepted, the media barely highlights them. They're far more interested in day-to-day, episodic, hour-to-hour politics. So really, nothing is going to change until people are going to understand that you can't just focus on climate change breathlessly when a disaster strikes. It has to be sustained action through the year, and a mainstreaming of the problems and challenges that climate change will inevitably bring, and the transition in lifestyles and land use and many other essentials needed to bring a shift, at least in terms of adapting to the vagaries and harshest impacts of climate change. Now, Pakistan is not a big emitter; it's less than 1%. So we have not contributed to the greenhouse gases that lead to accumulation that leads to global warming. We all know that weather patterns are no longer anywhere what we understood them to be. They are all now unpredictable, at great variance, and are changing almost everything in almost every kind of predictive and survival infrastructure that even developed economies have managed to put in place. Because if you can see that Canada has been battling a number of wildfires, they continue. True. And it's a highly resourced, well-prepared, resilient country. But but when the climate-driven extreme weather events attack a community or a country or a region, then very little can be done except to save lives. Infrastructure is very hard to save, especially in flooding, etc. So this is something that is now becoming a recurring pattern, including glacial melt, including forest fires, very high summer temperatures, which peak in Pakistan compared to all over the world. And it's something that we need to take cognizance of all year round. When we make the policy, given several this year, they don't even get past the metro pages, if at all. If I give a irresponsible political statement, well, it's going to headline the whole day.
Exactly. And, Honorable Minister, just one last question.
I have to go. I'm in a recon meeting. I'll have to go. I'm very sorry.
All right, sure, no problem. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, to be very honest, I think certainly wanted to mention was that, just 4 or 5 months ago, Hajra, her name was mentioned in the top 100 most influential people who've actually kind of represented their own country in that too, in terms of climate change, where Pakistan was vulnerable. And she even spoke about it. She literally mentioned that, that it's not because of Pakistan that we have contributed to the greenhouses, green gases as well. Eventually, I think what people really need to understand is that she happens to be one of those amazing people who represented Pakistan, in all of those conventions which have taken place. Not just that, made the world understand that it's because of them that Pakistan is vulnerable to such climate change as well and such sorts of impacts.
That's very true, and I think she has also a new book in her title, and that is very interesting and amazing, especially the one who wants to read about it. And the matter of the fact is that she has again and again said that these recurring patterns of the extreme abnormalities of the climate change, they're extremely disturbing for a country like Pakistan, because we do not have, like our Minister Sahiba mentioned, very developed resources which can help in coping up the climate losses. And last year we suffered $30 billion of the loss because of the climatic conditions, and Pakistan is suffering and does not have the resources, and it's not in the first place a contributor towards this climate change. And all of these events, all of these abnormalities are definitely impacting Pakistan. It is creating a lot of pressure on our government's resources, on our state's resources, and we need to make sure, and the world needs to make sure that the narrative of the climate change should be translated into the actions, into the more concrete actions.
Exactly, and in addition to that, Hajra, I believe that you've hit the nail on the head as well, and where we are certainly speaking about climate change. Imagine that, certainly again in 2023, if the same areas are vulnerable to be kind of struck by Biparjoy, which was actually struck by the flooding, which cost us $30 billion in losses. God forbid, unfortunately, this unpredictability, number one. And then imagine that the pattern happens to be the same for all of those vulnerable areas. But we're very lucky once again that we've been joined by an environmentalist who happens to be Miss Maryam Shabbir, who's online with us. We're going to ask about this very phenomena of cyclones and how does it take place, and does it really have to do something with climate change? I think this is something which we really need to establish. So, Assalamu alaikum, Maryam. How are you? Good morning. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Walaikum salam. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you so much once again. So, Maryam, first thing first, for our audiences and for us to understand it better, do you think that this cyclone phenomena exists because of climate change, or do you think that it's just a natural phenomena which takes place over time?
Or the intensity, the increase in the intensity is linked to the climate change?
Well, as you said, our female anchor, the intensity has to do with climate change, because with the passage of time, carbon dioxide emissions are increasing, and so the absorption capacity of carbon dioxide absorption capacity of oceans and sea is reducing. They absorb carbon dioxide, which is emitted into the air. So increase in sea level rise and increase in temperature, it intensifies the intensity of cyclones, of course, and cyclones occur on, of course, in oceans and seas when temperature is like 27 degree or more. So with the increased global warming, the 27 temperature degree it's not hard for oceans to form cyclones. So of course it has like strong links with climate change as well.
All right, and in addition to that, I'm very sorry that I'm going to bring in this conversation, that too on a very lighter note. I still remember that, I watched this film titled Tornado. And so they had this very simple technique of having these metallic balls which they used to release in cyclones, and the cyclones would disperse. Do you think that scientists have actually worked on how to disperse a cyclone? Do we have such a technology over here, or do you think we are way behind from that film?
Shahzad, honestly speaking, I haven't watched that film, so I won't be able to comment
Okay, but
on that.
so the question is, the sole purpose to ask this question is, do we have any such intervention mechanism with which we can actually disperse these cyclones, or do you think that there's no such mechanism which exists, and all we need to do is that we need to pray to Allah Almighty to please avert such a natural calamity?
Well, there is a way in terms of doing mitigation measures, which probably our government this time did when it came to this Biparjoy cyclone. They evacuated, around 80,000 people, and they issued advisories, and they advised people to not go to CBU, Karachi CBU, and stay indoors, and follow advices and everything. That is one thing which we can do, unfortunately, because the intensity of cyclone is it's so high that so far it's hard to really do this. Take the help of current technology to lessen its speed when it comes to cyclones. Because what you can do in oceans, it's like oceans are so big surfaces. What kind of technology you can install there to really stop them or decrease their speed or something?
I mean, if we can fake rain, I think we can pretty much do anything. Allah has given us the ability. But very quickly, one last question, Maryam. So thank you so much for establishing that the wind speed has to do, and the rising sea level has to do quite a lot with climate change. But one last thing, and that is that so just a few days, I think it was a year ago that we heard that there's this going to be storm named Katrina, I think, or something of that sort in US, and so now it's Biparjoy. How do we name these cyclones? Is there a mechanism that with which we come out with these names, that Biparjoy or Katrina, or whatever it is? How do we name them, and why do we name them like
the
this?
masculinity and femininity associated with these names.
Actually, there is no science behind this naming, cyclones or anything like this. Biparjoy, this name came from Bengali language, which means the
Storm.
Cyclone, a lot of intensity, which can destroy. The meaning of that is it can destroy at much greater speed and with at much larger area. That means. It simply meant that. So I don't think so. There is science behind naming these.
I mean, because I would never name a cyclone which can destroy anything with the last name Joy. But thank you so much, Maryam, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. Thank you so much for establishing that even these cyclones do quite a lot with climate change. And very quickly, over here in Punjabi, Bipar actually means that machhar jana, or bipar gaya, so something of that sort, that it's out of control. So I don't know whether it's a mixture of Punjabi or English, or
no, it's a Bengali language, and it means the storm in that. But thank you so much for saying that, and thank you so much for having this conversation on this cyclonic storm. And I think we as a world need to be afraid of the frequency of these storms that are hitting the earth, and we need to be very serious about saving the earth, because this is our last chance at saving the humanity, as the Antonio Guterres said. So we have a very interesting conversation lined up, so don't go anywhere. After the break, we are going to come back and have that conversation.
Good morning. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and for everybody who just tuned into PTV World, you're watching World this morning. I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and with me, I'm very lucky to have been joined by my very well-known colleague, happens to be Ms. Hajra Satti. A lot have been spoken about Biparjoy and climate change and how Pakistan is so vulnerable, and that too without kind of contributing to the greenhouse gases. But now, ladies and gentlemen, coming back to how everybody wants to be an entrepreneur in this era. you know, that the mechanism or the dynamics of business are very diverse, and especially when somebody has expended will be over 85 countries and finally operated from Pakistan. It feels wonderful, and we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who happens to be an entrepreneur. Their product goes with the name of, or their brand name is GK Hair. He is Mr. Fan Tibolli. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you today?
Alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. Not just that, alongside him, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who actually does get this credit of, you know, kind of making sure that the business is going to expand, because she happens to be business growth expert, and she is Miss Alexis Song. Hello, assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. So we'll certainly towards the end talk about GK Hair. But first things first, what are the characteristics of an entrepreneur? What sort of personality do you think an entrepreneur really needs to possess?
Right. Okay, so an entrepreneur, I believe, is a person that cannot have the fear of losing everything that they have. So I guess as an entrepreneur, you always start with very little or nothing at all, and without any fears, because if you have nothing to start with, you actually have no fear to lose it all, right? So you can always start again. From when I was very young, like 13 years old, I already started my own business, and from that time, I was creating what I could create at the time. So originally, I was born in Brazil, wow. And I was 13 years old, and my father's boss had chicken, and he said, like, look, I have these eggs that I sell to the supermarket, right? So he said, look, I get paid this much for each dozen of eggs. If you sell it for this much, you keep the rest.
Yeah.
You keep the rest. You keep whatever you sell above this much. And then I said, okay, great. So I started taking these eggs, putting in a cart, and taking it to the houses and going house by house and selling. Once the eggs were all done, I sold all the chickens as well. Wow. So I went back to the same customers again and again, selling all the chickens that actually put those initial eggs. Because the chicken get old, so they no longer put eggs, right?
Yeah.
So then I sell the chickens. Finish all the chickens, and then I'm out of work now. And I said, what can I do now? What's next?
The money you saved over that.
Yeah, and I was like 13, so I was basically saving a lot of the money. My father wasn't like, give me the money or anything. And I was saving, and
wonderful.
I want to buy a bicycle all the time.
Okay.
So the next thing that I did is I went to an ice cream place,
Right.
and I started selling ice cream.
Wow.
It was very interesting, and I think that's where I learned the most in my life, because there were 22 other people there, and each one of them had like a beautiful little shopping ice cream cart.
Yeah.
And they had nothing for me other than a very big and ugly one. And I started with that one. It went really great. And again, I'm like maybe turning 14 by now, and like the guy said at the ice cream place, like, you have made a fortune with this cart. And my life story has been very, very challenging for me, but I think very rewarding as well.
Exactly. And do you think that it might have contributed for you to kind of start working at 13 years of age, and that now where you are, you know, so you've done it a little earlier?
I believe very much that if I had everything given to me at that age, at 13 years old, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Okay.
Now today I'm 43 years old.
You don't look like 43.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm 43, and I feel like the challenges on a young age will shape you to be a very successful person.
From chicken, eggs, and ice cream, how did you end up making hair products for women? And
well,
that too, you know, which is expanded over 85 countries.
Great, yeah. So I was living at this time in 2003. I was living in Florida in the U.S. And being born in Brazil, I have the knowledge of the language and the country.
Yep.
And in Brazil, that was in the back of some salons in Rio de Janeiro. People were mixing some products. And I heard about this product that people are mixing through some friends that I have.
Yep.
And I was very intrigued to know, like, what are they mixing? What do you mean? Like, the women were saying, this is the best thing that has ever been created. And I was like, what is that? How can it be, you know? Yes. And why there's no business on this? And I'm at this stage, at this time, I'm 27 years old, yep. 26 years old. So I'm actually going to go travel to Brazil in 2006. I said, I'm going to find out everything about this. I get there, I look for some products, and I find some product that was not exactly what they were talking about, but I took it back to the Florida, tested, it wasn't exactly what they wanted. It wasn't exactly what was being spoken about.
Yeah.
Then I decided that I was going to keep looking. Internet was already big at
There,
the time.
yeah.
2006 already big. And I'm searching on the web and talking to everyone that I could. I was able to find a few different small factories or people making basically in the back of salons. I took some bottles to Florida, started selling to people in Florida. At this time, I was in real estate in Florida. And I started driving around South Florida, selling salon by salon. Same style again as the egg, the chicken, and the ice cream. And
the brand name was the same?
no, so at the time, that was not even a brand.
Okay.
It was a clear bottle.
That's it.
A clear bottle with no label or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm going
And it
salon
was
by
cheaper,
salon.
so people were willing to buy.
It was not actually cheap.
Okay.
It was, we're talking about a small bottle at the time we were selling for $85.
Wow.
Yeah, $85 on a small bottle.
So, you as an entrepreneur and for the very first time going into a shop to sell your bottle, you did realize that it was too expensive, right?
Yeah.
$85 at that time, 2006, it was too much.
But it's not about how much something costs.
Yeah.
It's about how much you believe you can sell.
True.
And also what it gives back to the customer.
Exactly.
So you could sell something that's $5, it gives no results, it's too expensive.
True.
Now, however, this was $85 and it gave a lot of results and profitability.
And
salons.
how much were you saving at that time, in an $85 bottle?
So I was able to turn around and make double as much.
Wow.
Double as much. So I was keeping pretty good on that. And within 3 months, I was making more money selling this product than in real estate.
Wonderful.
So real estate no more, right?
That's wonderful. Now moving to Ms. Alexis. So you have, do you believe that it's important to have the degrees in order to proliferate your business? Because your designation is very interesting. It is business growth, right? It is related to the business growth. So what sort of opinion do you have regarding the business and entrepreneurship? Because a lot of companies, especially the unicorn ones, they are not encouraging or they do not want to have a degree in the first place because they're looking for the skilled people in the market.
And do you think, is it always heard by the company that, okay, you have this idea,
you have a
want-
bachelor,
Yeah.
the PhD or the masters to be able to get a more, pertinent employment in the market?
Yeah, actually, I do have an opinion on that, and I don't think that a degree is important. For example, Van actually never went to school, like got a college degree. I actually never finished college as well, because actually at the beginning of my career, I started in the tech industry, which is actually minority is women, of course, and I really do believe that as long as you have the skill set, that is the most important thing, as well. Second, of course, your mindset, because at the end of the day, everything is in your mind, right? If you can tell yourself that you can do it, you believe in it, you can absolutely achieve everything. So for me, as an immigrant, I moved to the US. College was very, very expensive, and I thought that school was not actually teaching me.
what you wanted to learn.
Sorry?
So school wasn't teaching you what you actually wanted to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't teaching me what I wanted to learn. I felt like I was just reading textbooks, and I just wasn't learning much. So I felt that I could teach myself and learn by myself out in the real world. So I put myself out there, and that is actually how my career began.
But do you feel that the women face that sort of glass ceiling in the first place, that they're not able to climb up to the top, especially in the corporate environment, and it is being, shuttered down by a lot of entrepreneurship, because you see a lot of women entrepreneurs coming up in the first place?
Yeah, I definitely do think that there are disadvantages that women do face. Of course, we are the mothers, we spend more time with our children, but I do believe that if we can advance with the future, like there's a lot of technology being developed right now. We're after COVID with the world of remote working as well. We can definitely take advantage of that, but of course, these are problems that we need to constantly keep addressing and empowering each other.
Exactly. So in the first place, I think Van happens to be very lucky, and it's because of the fact that for all of those Hollywood films I've watched, if the guy does not have a degree, it's really hard to land a partner. Number one. Number two, I believe that, if you are using the GK hair products, your hair look nice. I think it's very authentic, and people really need to check it out. But very quickly, because you happen to be somebody who who's responsible for the growth, and you're the growth expert. How important is the market analysis, and how do you make sure that that product which you're going to sell in Pakistan or elsewhere in the world, do you think that there certainly needs to be some slight changes and tweaks, for example, with the scent and with the flavor and how things are. Do you think that market analysis is very important for any entrepreneur to be out there, or is it just the passion and the resilience bit of it?
I think there's a little bit of both, but I also do think that obviously the market is very different in other countries, but I do believe that questioning everything is one of the biggest things, right? So always questioning your competitors, the products, and what you can do to improve. And I think that Van can also expand on this.
Exactly, please.
Absolutely. The fragrance of the product, the quality of the product, we've never compromised on making the highest possible quality on our products. So our products are made with supernatural ingredients. There's no harsh chemicals or anything. We are compliant to sell in all countries in the world. Today we have Australia, Canada, which is very strict, all European Union, very different than our competitors that they typically stay with the North America and some Asian countries or even South America. We're compliant worldwide. In addition to that, another thing that we have been doing in the business is we're being very also worldwide sustainable. So we are moving our entire company towards sustainable packaging.
Yeah.
So that means what I want to do is I want to take out a larger number of bottles out of the ocean compared to the number of bottles that we put back in the ocean. Because our customers eventually, they will always trash a bottle of ours is always going to go in the ocean somewhere.
Exactly.
But if we have to make 10 bottles, to make 10 bottles, we should take 10 bottles out of the ocean first.
And in addition to that,
Yes.
just because we are speaking about how
Yes.
important it is for any entrepreneur out there to, kind of undergo a market analysis. So imagine there's a growing market of bald men out there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
Do you think that your company is actually working on making sure that there are going to be lesser people who are going to turn bald in their 30 or 40s? Because that's something which is right in front of us.
Right.
Every other, marketing company is working on that. Hey, you know what? If you're bald, you really need to check out our product. And, so people are always very reluctant because they never know what's going to happen to their head, and it's a human body part, and they're very, they're not willing at all. They're very cautious about it. So do you think that your company in days to come will certainly be dwelling onto ways in making sure that there's lesser hair fall?
Yes. So we have, for the last 5 years, we've been always analyzing that part of the beauty industry.
Yeah.
Man and baldness is the major problem of hair today.
True.
Now, that's an industry that is certainly going to make a first billionaire in the beauty
True.
industry when they
Only if
come
they figure it
up
out.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
When they figure it out. There is thousands of chemists worldwide today looking for the solution on how to fix this problem.
Yeah.
Right. So because you're operating in 85 different countries and every
Yes.
market has its own dynamics, right? So are you mindful of the concepts of the globalization and the localization, because there are cultural sensitivities in different markets, right? Or do you have the same product which is sold over in the different countries in the first place?
So we start with the highest possible bar, and from there we can lower from there. So we go to compliance as an example. Be compliant in a country like China or Canada is extremely difficult.
Yep.
Those are the first countries to change the rules. So from there, if you make a formula that is really high quality, and compliant, then you can fit into selling all the other countries.
True.
So that's how we start.
So make the best and then start with
Yeah,
it.
because
Yes.
obviously it's very easy to make a product that's compliant to the US standards, as an example. US is
true.
much of a freedom to do what you want on your products. But it's not enough, because then you only sell in the US market.
True.
So that's how we do in that part. As far as other compliances like in the world, we count on a lot of help from our distributors, our importers in different countries. We have offices in 9, 10 different countries today, ourselves, that we handle. We have people that speak the whole company. We speak 12 different languages in the
Right.
company, so we are able to do a lot of ourselves. But
Right.
we still need people that speak different languages to be compliant in all the other countries.
Wow, and it's wonderful. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, the sole purpose was to have them over here to kind of share a real-time example. And this gentleman, the lady herself, has done it, for themselves. They're operating in 85 countries. And, so imagine that they still know that how they need people from different backgrounds, from different cultures to kind of do the compliance bit of it. But very quickly towards the end, I'll move on to you. So I can see you wearing henna on your hands. So it's a very Pakistani culture sort of a thing. Where did you get it from? And do you know anything about Urdu?
I actually do not know much about Urdu. I just learned a couple of words.
For
which is
example?
amazing. Shukriya.
Shukriya.
And I got this henna done from a beautiful friend named
Can you
Ambreen.
show it into the camera as well?
Yes, I think it looks very beautiful.
So I think it's also matching to your shirt. But when we used to put the henna back in our old days, so the color was very maroonish, but now it's very.
It's more of a chemical now. These days,
Yeah,
right?
so I fell asleep on my hand and I didn't know it would make a mark on my face. I woke up, I was like.
This is something we go through almost every Eid, but thank you so much, Van, and
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Alexis, for
Thank
being
you
with
so
us.
much.
Wonderful to be in conversation with you. And I would want to wish you best of luck that all of the
of luck.
remaining countries you take over, because it's a
Thank
longer
you.
journey. You started at 13, you're going strong at 43, and that's what we certainly wish for both of you and for your entire company and all your employees. For people out there, ladies and gentlemen, the sole purpose of sharing such a realistic example is that it's not just a motivational speaker sitting over here and telling you that, okay, you need to do this, who certainly have no experiences of how businesses operate. And you know, there are so many challenges. We were unable to figure out all of those challenges because as you move from one boundary to another, you know, it'll have a very different implication. But for anybody who's out there, all it takes in the first place is the will that you wanted to do it. And that's how Van was able to build this billion-dollar probably business, you know, which operates in 85 different countries. And until next time, all you need to do is think of these people, you know, think of the idea they actually followed and then how they chased their dream, and inshallah you'll be able to do it. Just copy it 100%. Do not miss out 1% of it. You'll be able to succeed, inshallah. Until next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Have a great day.